How many greenies do we need? Let's talk about it after the break. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of GH Reacts, and today we're going to be talking gear, we're going to be talking guitars, which is always one of my favorite subjects, and I certainly have some thoughts about this one, so let's settle in and talk about it. For those of you who don't know, today, I believe, today is the 21st, Epiphone just announced that they would be releasing their own version of Greeny. And it's got some interesting specs that we'll talk about in a minute. Just to give you an overview of how many Greenies there actually are in the world. So we have the original Greeny that was, I made a video about it a very long time ago. It was actually one of my first videos on YouTube that kind of put me on the map. The original Greeny was, I forget who, somebody actually told me who the original owner was, but then they sold it to Peter Green of Fleetwood Mac, and then Peter Green sold it to Gary Moore, who played with Thin Lizzy and is obviously a famous blues player. And then Gary Moore ended up selling it, and it kind of changed hands a couple of times and ended up with Kirk Hammett of Metallica, who still owns and plays it to this day. So Kirk obviously gave the guitar to Gibson so that they could, you know, do what they do and make some copies of the guitar, which they did. And so far, Gibson has made 3 versions of the Greeny. They made a $50,000 version of the Greeny, which was extremely exclusive. I think it was 100 pieces that they made, maybe 50 pieces. I can't remember exactly how many. But at any rate, buying one would get you dinner with Kirk as well. And I believe Jason Momoa got the last one that was available for sale at the time. So then they released another, I believe, Murphy-aged $20,000 version, which wasn't quite as perfect in its aging. It was a little bit, so they kind of varied a little bit, but they all had the faux headstock break and the, you know, wear right around the pickup cover like the other ones do. But that wasn't enough for Gibson. Now, Gibson decided that they wanted to release yet another version of Greeny, and they released a permanent addition to the standard line, and they released a Greeny version of that. So kind of like a, I guess a Slash, you know, Appetite Burst kind of thing, which, you know, I wasn't, again, making it more affordable for people is not necessarily a bad thing. So I'm not really saying that it is a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's a lot. So then for a very long time, there was a lot of speculation that Epiphone was going to release its own version of Greeny. A lot of people have been, you know, trying to spec it out, figure out how much it was going to cost. Well, finally we know. It's going to cost $1,500. So about half of what you can get the Gibson standard for. And I have the specs in front of me on my iPad here, which we will go through on the Epiphone Greeny. But just before I do that, I wanted to just speculate and ask you guys, like, how much is too much at this point? I mean, how many different versions of Greeny are we going to get? Are we going to get an even cheaper one that's, you know, doesn't have, it just has an out-of-phase pickup, but not the Gibson pickups, you know? It's just like, how many guitars can sound the same? And, you know, I actually got my hands on a Greeny at Sam Ash. A customer was holding it. He'd put a down payment on it. And the guy was like, you can still play it. It's fine. You know, he pulled it out of the case and everything for me. And I just noodled around on it a little bit. And it's a fine guitar. Don't get me wrong. But the Greeny sound is a very particular sound. That out of phase sound is very, very particular. And it's basically like that one style of British blues kind of music that you're going to really want that sound for. So when it comes to overall just like regular Les Paul, that had just having that Greeny sound, there's other ways you could do it. There's other guitars, especially now, like even I think the traditionals have a push pull where you get the out of phase sound. So it's a very easy thing to get even without having the Greeny name attached to it. So I just don't understand where this kind of niche sound, this very, very like particular sound has kind of gotten so big. And why we need so many different versions of it. Like, what the hell, you know? Anyway, let's talk about this Epiphone one if you're curious. Again, as I said, $1,500 for the Epiphone version. And I'll flash some pictures up and I'll put all this information up on the screen so you can read along as I read. But you'll notice, first and foremost, it does have the Gibson style open book headstock. The headstock looks exactly like Gibson's, except it says Epiphone. And like the other Greeny Les Pauls, because the original Greeny, the Les Paul signature wore off, they omit the Les Paul signature. So there's no Les Paul signature, which I'm not a big fan of, but okay. I'd rather, if you're going to have a guitar that's not aged, then why not let the user age it themselves just by using it? To each his own. But anyway, body style Les Paul top is a AAA flame maple veneer. It is a veneer. What is a veneer? Veneer is different than a maple top because it's extremely thin. And Epiphone uses a very small amount of maple, and it's basically like the smallest amount of maple, like literally probably no wider than the width of a few pieces of paper, to be honest with you. So not that much maple. You got cream binding, top and fretboard. The body is mahogany as usual, and the body finish is aged gloss. I like this. The way it looks to me is it does look like it has that satiny finish, which I like more than the full gloss. So I'm a fan of that. So I'll give them that. Neck, custom Greeny profile. No idea what that means. 12-inch radius, Graphtec nut, long neck tenon. 22 frets as usual. But here is the big one for me. Here's the big one. Indian Laurel Epiphone. Like, okay, let's talk about fretboards. Obviously, rosewood was a protected wood for a very long time. So a lot of these companies started making the guitars out of Pal Ferro and Indian Laurel. I prefer Indian Laurel more than I prefer Pal Ferro, but I don't prefer either of them anywhere near a nice piece of rosewood. I have a Gibson Les Paul, which is not in the shot right now. It's upstairs, but it's got a beautiful piece of rosewood, nice and dark, very, very slick, plays great. Pal Ferro, this is Indian Laurel. The Epiphone special here has Indian Laurel. I don't hate it, but I certainly prefer my rosewood. Then I prefer that. So you're telling me that on a $1,500 guitar, you couldn't spring for rosewood? Come on, guys. It does say mother of pearl trapezoid inlays, which, if it's real mother of pearl, that's interesting. It does come with Grover automatics. What else on here that's anything different? Epiphone bridge, which, hey, again, you could have sprung for a real Gibson bridge, but hey, whatever. Nickel finish. The electronics, obviously, the neck pickup and the both pickups are the Gibson USA Greeny Buckers. The neck pickup being reverse mounted and having the reverse magnetic polarity, which gives you that very nasally, out of phase Peter Green tone that I've always known it as Peter Green. Everything switchcraft, CTS potentiometers, Mallory capacitors, 50s wiring, which is what everybody seems to want these days. And it does come with a very nice hard shell case. So again, the specs on this guitar are not very different than the 59 Epiphone reissue that they did, which was Gibson pickups. They had other Epiphone releases that have Gibson pickups over the years. None of them have ever passed the $1,000 mark. $1,500 for an Epiphone made in China is ridiculous, in my opinion. Absolutely ridiculous. Maybe you get away with $1,200. Even that, to me, making it more than everything else and all the other ones that also have Gibson pickups and also have hard shell cases and also have, everything else that is included in this. It's the same exact specs, but you're charging $500 for a name at this point. A name, mind you, which I believe is starting to get a little cheapened because you've got just Greeny overload. It's just everywhere. And I feel like, look, if it's going to make people, well, first of all, let's just be real. Greeny, the guitar, is for older guitar players, right? The market is for people who are fans of the original Greeny guitar. Young players, they don't know who Peter Green is. They don't know what the guitar is. Some of them might not even know who the hell Metallica is anymore, other than they all run around wearing their hoodies, okay? Because they look cool. So who is it for? Like, it's just unbelievable. And I feel like that's why they think they can get away with this price point, because they know the people buying these guitars are going to be the older, players who have more money and can burn it, and they don't really worry so much about the price tag. They just want the name and they want a piece of the Greeny legacy. You're just buying a copy of a copy. I just want to know your thoughts. Obviously, this is something that it's cool that it exists, I guess. Again, I don't want to just poo-poo everything and rain on everybody's parade. But the fact that they are releasing so many different versions of Greeny, and Kirk Hammett is just swimming in greenies. It's just I just don't understand when enough is enough, and when they get to the point where, okay, we've gotten Greeny saturation in the market and it's over. It's just okay. But again, $1,500 for an Epiphone, why not? If you're probably going to have to make payments on that anyway. So if you're going to do that, just buy the Gibson Greeny, I mean, it's just ridiculous to me. So let me know your thoughts. I really would like to know. What do you think about it? And tell me if you would spend $1,500 on an Epiphone made in China. Would you do it? I wouldn't. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.